Hi everybody, so welcome back to my channel. Just dropped my daughter off at preschool and we're just gonna do another, what is it? You look good, you feel good, you feel good, you do good. We're just gonna keep that momentum going. Today sucks because the weather is really crappy. It's really hot and muggy and my sinuses were completely congested last night. My 9-month-old, if you guys don't know, or if you're new here, she was born without a jaw. Um, I guess the technical term is Pierre-Robin syndrome. And so her airway is just like really, 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 really small because her jaw was not developed in utero. And so basically when she was in the NICU for 3 months, she had a breathing tube for the first like month and a half of her life. And so she really not learned how to breathe through her nose, but she was aware that like oxygen and breathing through her nose was happening. I don't think she was aware that like a breathing tube was down her throat, and that's not how regular humans are traditionally supposed to breathe, through a breathing tube. So when her nose gets clogged up, it really freaks her out because that was like her main source of feeling like she was able to breathe on her own, even though a machine was breathing for her while she was in the NICU. So whenever she gets a stuffed up nose, it's like, oh my gosh, that's like my main supply of how I learned how to breathe was through my nose, and now I can't do that. So she freaks out, as she should, because that's normal. And so she was up all night, and this is the second night in a row she was up all night, and I was up all night because of that, and because of the fact that I wasn't getting any sleep. I mixed with the weather, I just feel like it's been a 2-for-1 combo there for me. So I'm just trying to, again, push myself to just want to show up by any means necessary, no matter how I'm really feeling, even though I feel like crap. But so that's how we're doing in the household today. Something that I do want to talk about, I think it's been like circulating around the news recently, is this like Michael Oher situation. And it does hold a special place in my heart because I am adopted. I have 7 brothers and sisters, and we are all adopted from foster cares across the country. And not only are we adopted, but like our parents are Black and white. So we also have like the transracial adoption thing going on that I think Michael Oher's story also has. And it just hurts my heart when I see good people get their names trashed through the mud. Like, I understand that Michael Oher, the reason his grievance is like what he says it is because he feels like he was manipulated. He said he wasn't aware of what was going on at the time between not being adopted and a conservatorship. But if you've been following the story, you know that Michael Oher was brought into the Toohey family when he was 17 years old, almost 18. So it was kind of like pointless, not to bring up the adoption, but to be like, you're getting ready to be a legalized adult in like less than a year. So adoption really isn't an option. Now, I understand how like it looks against like the NCAA at the time and now, because a lot of rich families will do this. They will see talent on a child, on an underfunded, underprivileged child, and like bring them in and lead them into the direction of whatever college they want to be played for, hoping to get kickbacks, or hoping that they make it to the NFL so they can get kickbacks and all that kind of stuff. So it's understanding why there was such hype about it and such why it was problematic at the time and why they went through the conservatorship, because it was also to cover the Tuohy's butt. But it's just really sad for me because as an adopted child, like, my biological parents didn't want me. They didn't give a shit about me. They didn't care about me. I was put in the foster care system as soon as I was born, as along with some of my other brothers and sisters that were also adopted out of foster care. Like, our biological parents did not want us. We were trash. We were thrown away like trash. And in Michael Oher's book, it talks about the fact that he wrote in 2011. He talked about the fact that he really didn't have much parenting. His mom was on drugs a lot of his life. He didn't know really who his father was. He was not really going to school on a consistent basis. And it's just, he was just a throwaway kid. He was raising himself, basically, and that's just what it was. It wasn't a glamorous life by any means. It was, in fact, a very sad life. And I'm not saying the Tuohy's saved him from this, but they did show him kindness, and they did show him compassion, and they did treat him and try to give him guidance in a way nobody in his biological family did. So that's the number one issue that I think I have with this Michael Oher situation, is just like the lack of gratitude this story seems to bring, or he seems to bring, because I understand that you could argue there was a motive of seeing him make it to the NCAA and then also moving on forward and making it to the NFL. However, I would argue that based on Michael Oher's history of where he came from and his family history, I would argue that there was also a chance that Michael Oher would have been involved in something or would have done something, statistically speaking, that would have given him a good chance to either end up in jail or end up being surrounded by people committing acts that would lead them to jail because of how he grew up. Statistically speaking, they say how you were raised is a glaring indication of what's going to happen to you. So for the Tuohy's to take that kind of risk as well, I think that plays a role in the story. I have two daughters. I think I talk about them a lot on this show. The Tuohy's are better than me in this. I don't care how Christian I claim to be. I am not bringing home a 6'4", almost 300-pound boy to come live in my house with two girls. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. I don't care how horrible a person that makes me be, sound, whatever. Like I just talked about, how you're raised, the environment you're raised, the values of the environment of the people that you're raised, what they do care about and what they don't care about, the structure that you were brought up in, that stuff plays a role in who you are, who you develop into, the choices you make. It does. Now, everybody has free will. I get that. But the Tuohy's didn't know Michael Oher before they met him like that. They have no idea who Michael Oher knew. They had no idea, where his roots took him. None of that. And the fact that they still, had the heart to open up their home with their teenage daughter. This is not a race thing. This is simply a sex thing. I am not opening my home to a 6'4", 300-pound high schooler male with two daughters in my home. And I'm not going to apologize for that. So that's another thing for the Tuohy's too. And it just, the gratitude, the lack of gratitude is what I should say. I don't know the Tuohy's. I'm not trying to Captain Save-A-Ho the Tuohy's because I think they're fine. But this is another issue that it comes out. You're telling me that, so I think the movie was made in like 2000, the Blindside movie based on Michael Oher's life was made in like 2011 or something like, no, not 2011. I'm sorry. That was when the book came out. I think the movie was made like 14 years ago. 14 or 15 years ago is when the movie came out. And Michael Oher has gone to Ole Miss. He's gotten drafted to the NFL in the first round. He's played in the NFL. All of that has happened. And you are telling me through all of that, he had no idea about any of the conservatorship issues that are being brought to light. He's saying he had absolutely no idea. He was unaware of everything that has gone on in terms of the conservatorship. I'm not calling Michael Oher a liar because I don't know the man. I don't know the rooms he was in. I don't know how much he understood what was happening. But for 14, 15 years of my life, I'm going to figure some things out. He had agents around him. He had lawyers around him. He had business people around him protecting his assets in the NFL. I'm going to think that happened. You're telling me none of this came to light? None of these people asked about any of this? I mean, when you enter in contracts in the NFL, which you do because you're getting deals, your conservatorship is going to come up, because in order to handle your money financially, which is what a conservatorship is basically about, saying you're not financially able to take care of yourself, that stuff is going to come up because of the contracts you're signing and the deals you're making in the NFL. So for Michael Oher to say that he had no idea, that doesn't make any sense. I mean, it just, like, logistically speaking, it doesn't make any sense. And I don't know, his claim is that the Toohey family made a lot of money on the movie and that he didn't, and that the Toohey family made money with his name and they just felt like not sharing any with him. It doesn't make sense. It really doesn't. And I think the thing that hurts me is the fact that this family really, I feel like, went out of their way to try to give Michael the most guidance that they possibly could. I don't want to necessarily say save him from what could have been, but first of all, if Michael Oher was not 6'4", almost 300 pounds, if he did not hit the genetic lottery, none of this would be happening. So, like, he needs to praise God and show gratitude for the fact that, like, if I had not been blessed with the height and the weight that I had, this wouldn't be possible anyways. But if I also hadn't met this family, where would my life have taken me? Because nobody in my biological family seemed to give a crap about me and helping me use what I had been blessed with and what God had given me to take me and help me do something with my life with it. So I just, like I said, I have adoptive parents. And this is another thing that annoys me too. This is why the Colin Kaepernick thing, I didn't jump on that bandwagon either, because Colin Kaepernick, your biological family didn't give a crap about you, and your adoptive parents came along. They cared enough about you. Now, you can't predict whether or not a 2, 3, 4-year-old is going to the NFL, but your parents cared enough about you and loved you enough and wanted to give you the best childhood that they possibly could. And whatever that did for you, it guided you to the NFL. And, like, you want to just drag their name through the mud and allow the media to, like, tell you what to talk about your parents and say about your parents. And I just think that's gross. If you have an issue with your adoptive parents, like, deal with that at home. Like, your adoptive parents obviously loved you and gave you the life that, like, any kid in foster care would dream of having. Like, they fantasize about the lives that Colin Kaepernick had with his adoptive parents. They fantasize about the life that I had with my adoptive parents, because it's not normal. Normal people don't get rescued from foster care and end up living beautiful childhoods like I did. They don't. And it's just so disheartening, because, again, I don't know the Tooheys, nor do I know Michael Oher. But what I do know is that these people gave you guidance, and these people gave you a home for however length of time. These people brought you into their home. These people showed you, bare minimum, what your biological family couldn't. Now, did the Tooheys have ulterior motives? Maybe. But for the last 14, 15 years of going to Ole Miss and going to the NFL and playing in the NFL, there hadn't been a peep about how they've treated you poorly. Until some stuff comes up about the Tuohys selling their restaurant and making $200 million off of it, and now it seems like it's just a money grab. I mean, I've seen pictures over the course of the last decade of like Michael Oher with the Tuohys at big events, his NFL signing, the weddings of his adopted sister. Just, these are major events that people have in their life. And if you are not in good standing with them, you're not going to those events. And it's just really, really sad because, again, if you have issues with your adoptive parents after they have sacrificed their lives to give you a child that's not biologically theirs the best life, knowing that like they know that like as a child you're probably thinking this, or you're eventually going to think, this isn't my real mother, I'd like to meet my real parents. They set themselves up for that risk of hopefully one day you understanding that like even though your biological mother gave you up, I'm your mother and I've tried my best to, even though you're not my biological child, I've tried my best to treat you and to show you how much I love you as if you are my biological child. All of that stuff. And it's just like, it's gross. It's gross when I see stories like this, because it's gross about what Colin Kaepernick did. It's gross about what Michael Oher's doing, because these are good people who have really seemed to try to do the best that they possibly can, the best that they possibly could to help these children that were not biologically theirs, help them out, put them in the best position possible, put them in the best position to secure a fruitful future. And it just seems like, oh God, it's just gross. It's just literally gross. No parents are perfect. I'm not saying that. My parents are not perfect. But if I have issues with my parents, I'm not dragging their names through the mud on social media. I'm not running to a news outlet to talk about how horrible my adoptive parents are and how they just are. No, absolutely not. No. My adoptive parents, who are my parents, I don't even like saying adopted parents. My parents looked at me, decided I was worth something that my parents didn't want, and gave me the opportunity to have a childhood, to have a future, to be able to provide for my children in a way I would never have had if I would have stayed in foster care. And just like most of these kids in foster care, most of these kids in foster care are not going to graduate high school. Most of them are not going to go to college. Most of them are probably going to get pregnant before they age out of their teenage years. Some of them are probably going to go to jail, and some of them are probably going to die. And like, I forgot addiction. A lot of them are going to get addicted to something: drugs, alcohol, sex, trauma, abuse, whatever. And it's just like, Colin Kaepernick, you got saved from that. Michael Oher, you didn't get saved from it, but these people came in and tried to do the best they possibly could to lead you in another direction. I just have serious issues with how people treat their adoptive parents. Like, I don't know. Okay, so I'm not really doing much else today with my makeup. I'm just trying to just look a little bit presentable. But that's my rant for today, and I will see you guys soon. Like, subscribe to my channel. I'm trying to get this thing off the ground now.